Near mint condition, the home of collected editions.
That cover's so awesome.
Absolute format is the best way to own this store. Time to empty those wallets and fill those shelves.
How's it going, all you minties? Uncanny Omar here from Near Mint Condition, the home of collected editions, and join me today for my overview of the Batman Knightfall Omnibus Volume 1. This is the new printing from DC Comics, so let's go ahead and get started. And welcome back, everybody. So what we're looking at here is the latest printing of Batman Knightfall Omnibus Volume 1. I've done an overview, actually it was a retro view of all three of the volumes. This one came out originally in 2017, and we'll be doing a comparison to the original printing here in a little bit. Just want to show you the spine, and then the back of the book, and the retail price being $150. Every man has a breaking point. Yeah, they do. All right, I wanted to bring in the 2017 printing over here on the left-hand side. The colors look almost identical. These are just a little bit darker in the original printing. Font is the same down here. The same Kelly Jones piece of art, and it is an original piece because they got him to come back. He's one of the people that did actually, he did all the covers for the original Knightfall. And here's what the spines look like. You have Robin here, Killer Croc, Joker, Batman Knightfall Omnibus Volume 1, the DC logo. That looks identical. This is slimmer than the original 2017 printing. So we'll be looking at the binding and the paper stock in a little bit. And then the back of the book, the 2017, again, the colors are just a little bit darker. The retail price of the original printing is $99.99, while the new printing is $150. This looks a little bit different, but I think it's because they're using a different font right here. Get all the details and the bricks on those roofs. All right, now let's look underneath the dust jackets. Looking at the flaps here. Doug Moench, Chuck Dixon, Alan Grant, Jim Aparo, Norm Breyfogle, and Graham Nolan. Those are the main creators of the books that were working on the books. So you can get a better look at the dust jacket right here. It is glossy finish. And underneath the dust jacket, it's the same image, the wraparound image, except without the text. And so you can get a better idea of what it looks like. Now, this is a story that came out in the early 90s, and if you've never read it, and just to let you know, I am going to be talking about some plot points for this story. Even though it's from 1993, I realize some of you haven't read it, so I like to warn people ahead of time. If you don't want any kind of spoilers, jump to the part of this video where I'm talking about the binding and then comparing it to the original printing. Because I am going to be talking about Knightfall, and there's some crucial parts in here, like the Vengeance of Bane story, or how exactly all this comes about. I'm not going to talk about the ending, or how everything gets resolved, but, you know, just in case, some spoilers. Alright, so, for all you brave souls that either don't care, or have already read it, let's go ahead and keep going with this. Alright, let's go ahead and crack this open. You have this Joe Quesada image right here from Batman 500. I always love that cover. This iconic image of a particular scene from Batman. I think it's 497. And no, that's the opener. This is from 497 right here. Chuck Dixon, Doug Moench, and Alan Grant taking the writing credits because they are the three main writers of this huge event. Graham Nolan, Jim Aparo, Norm Breyfogle, Mike Manley, Tom Mandrake, Tom Grindberg, just to name a few of the artists that worked on the book, or the pencilers rather. Eduardo Barreto, Jim Aparo, Norm Breyfogle, Tom Mandrake, Trevor Scott, and Bob Wyzek getting the billing for the inking. And then Adrian Roy and Klaus Janson doing the coloring right here, and lettering by Bill Oakley and Richard Starking. Both veterans in this world of lettering, and wonderful lettering at that. Knightfall, here's your introduction, and this was a brand new introduction in 2017 by Doug Moench, and it kicks it off with Chuck Dixon and Graham Nolan's Vengeance of Bane with this Glenn Fabry cover here. So what does this collect? Well, we know it collects Batman Vengeance of Bane #1. It also collects Batman 484 to 500, Batman Shadow of the Bat 16 through 18. Detective Comics 654 to 666, and Batman, or it was just Showcase, sorry, Showcase 93, 7 and 8. The book has 940 pages. So this was a really unique comic book right here because it's a one-shot, and it was one that a lot of people slept on, including me, because this is right after they saw the success of the Superman book. And I'll never forget going to the comic book store and people talking about how everything is just a gimmick these days. They're trying to get people to read these books. But honestly, the death of Superman got so many new readers into Superman. The breaking of the bat, we didn't know exactly what was going to happen to Batman. We just knew that something bad was going to happen to Batman. And we knew it was going to take place in a story called Knightfall. And there was a key player to this, and it was just rumors, because this is so weird to think about now, especially with social media, especially with forums or YouTube videos or podcasts or TikToks, whatever the hell people are watching or listening to. Back then, we just had to rely on our comic book store and what was coming out once a month from Comic Buyer's Guide, or what was coming on Wizard Magazine with rumors. We didn't really have forums. I mean, the internet was still a baby in 1993, but nobody that I knew had the internet. So we relied on comic book stores, and I remember like some people at the comic book store were talking about how this book was going to be worth so much money one day because it introduced who's going to be the main villain in Knightfall, and that is of course Bane. And this right here, it does introduce this really dark story about this guy named Bane, who was pretty much born in prison. So his entire life, he's been living in prison. He is abused as a child and grows up to kind of deem himself the person that is going to destroy the Batman, because he keeps having these dreams, he keeps having these illusions, and they kind of lead him into his own like group of people that will help him destroy Batman and take over Gotham. And one of them is Bird, this guy right here. He's the one that teaches him how to read. Now, not only is Bird teaching him to read, but he's also training himself to just kind of be the guy on top at this prison. And then we also see other people that decide to join him. We see Trog, and we see Zombie. And it's funny because it wasn't until years later that I think it was, I can't remember who I talked to at a convention. They were talking about how they came up with the names, and it might have been Chuck Dixon or it might have been Graham Nolan many years ago. But they were telling me that pretty much it's just band names like the Zombies or the Trogs or the Birds. That's kind of they got where they got the name. And he keeps having, like I said, these visions of taking over Batman, but he's had a fear of bats since he was a child. You can probably see through these pictures right here. And what he decides to do is go under, like, the knife, and people are wanting to experiment on prisoners, right? Because they can't experiment on people that have everyday jobs. They want to just experiment on prisoners. And what he volunteers for is venom getting injected into his blood. Now, venom was a storyline from the Legends of the Dark Knight where Batman tackles this drug, and he has to fight off this venom that's in him. The venom that's injected into Bane, however, has a weird side effect where it kills him, and he's dumped into the ocean, because this is what they do with failed experiments, and he breaks out of this body bag and kills this shark that's trying to eat him, shows up and kills the warden, and pretty much takes over this prison, like feeds the sharks the warden, and takes over the prison. And what he wants to do is go into Gotham City and take over Gotham City. He doesn't want to be Gotham's savior. He doesn't want to be the liberator. He just wants to take over Gotham and be the guy on top. And in order to do that, he has to take out the Bat. Now, this is really creepy, but really in a interesting way, like how this villain schemes. Because, like I said, he's a super strong guy. He's injected into like the venom into his veins. That's what makes him so strong, on top of the fact that he was already strong to begin with. But he's also a smart guy, so what he's doing is he's studying Batman like a prey. And of course, Batman's onto something. He's like, wait, somebody's watching me. This is really strange. And, you know, his goons are like, oh, well, let's go get him right now and we can kill him. And he's like, no, he's not like the others. This one is mine. I love these little cameos by the Three Stooges right here. And Batman does confront him. And this is I remember reading this as a kid. I'm like, oh my gosh, Batman's in trouble. He's like, you will not break the Sixth Commandment. So he's talking about how Batman refuses to kill all these people. And he's like, you will know my name one day. And on that day, you will beg for mercy. And Batman's like, you're threatening me. I love this art. I love that big smile on his face right there. This is Graham Nolan. And this is Bane's plan. He is going to set the city on fire. So then we move over to Batman Comics. What's going on there? We're introduced to a couple of characters that are going around. This is Black Mask. But Tim Drake is hanging around this new kid on the block, and his name is Jean-Paul Valley. Now, I talked about the things that are collected in here, but the biggest thing that I think was missing from this collection, I always say this every time, is the Sword of Azrael miniseries. Because Sword of Azrael introduces us to the Order of St. Dumas, it introduces us to Jean-Paul Valley, and it introduces us to who Azrael is, who's going to play a huge part in Knightfall. We see him fight this supervillain. I'm glad this stuff is collected in here. Because the costume for this supervillain right here, who's kind of a one-off supervillain, becomes really important later on. And we get these little early stories where Jean-Paul Valley is playing the role of Batman for a little bit while Bruce Wayne is doing something else. Jim Aparo, of course, on wonderful artwork. Here's some Detective Comics stuff. We do see Bane starting to show up a little bit through these pages, including like putting Venom into the Riddler. So the Riddler becomes more of an opposing force, like nobody saw coming. And again, this is all leading up to the big event that is called Knightfall. Let's see if this is when Sam Keith is doing the covers. And I absolutely love this cover. I remember buying 2 copies so I could hang one on my wall. This is Travis Charest. And as a kid, I was like, this guy's going to be huge one day. He's going to be the next Jim Lee. And I've said this many times on my videos, but in a way, I think he surpassed Jim Lee's level of excellence. Like, he has just transcended into another level of art. You can check out his art in the Weapons of the Meta Barons. But my favorite thing he did, which is not really collected anywhere outside of one really hard to find trade paperback, is the X-Men Wildcats crossover. His attention to detail, his art is just amazing. And he was doing Dark Star covers, and he'd been doing some stuff internally, like in the pages of the Flash annuals. This is another famous image right here, because it shows exactly how tired Bruce is. Like, he is just exhausted. This is when we're introduced to Azrael in the ongoing Detective Comics, even though he showed up earlier in the pages of the Sword of Azrael miniseries, and here he is right there, Jean-Paul Valley. And I don't know why Tim Drake decided to put Jean-Paul Valley in a costume of some villain that he fought earlier without all the spikes. Like, Jean-Paul Valley isn't that stupid. Why would he put him in this particular costume? Even as a kid, that stuff bothered me. All right, let's keep going. We're going to be talking about every single issue, and I don't want to do that. This is the first mistake right here, where Jean-Paul Valley decides to do something that Batman and Robin really don't agree with. And here's another Travis Charest piece. Although I'm not the biggest fan of the way that he drew Bane or Killer Croc, this is a very important issue right here, because this shows the strength of Bane. So Bane now is showing up more and more in these issues, and this, again, leading into something huge. And, oh, I never did finish telling the story. I could never find a first printing of that Vengeance of Bane, so I had to get a second printing. I do love the fact that they credit the cover artist in the back. I wish both companies would do that, not just in the front. Because I forgot to mention, because you have the introduction, then you jump right into the issues because there's no table of contents. So I do appreciate that they give the credit to the artist on the opposite side of the cover. So again, showcasing the strength of this particular character and the strength of Venom. And then we have this right here, which kicks off Knightfall. So what the plan is to get Zombie, Trog, and Bird to break everyone out of Arkham Asylum. And you saw how Batman, Bruce Wayne, is already tired by now. And this is Bane's master plan. Break out all the prisoners out of Arkham Asylum, while Batman has to get every single one of them back into prison. And we kick it off with Knightfall number 1 right here. So this is the prelude. And Knightfall number 1, where he has to go and get the Mad Hatter back. So this is pretty much issues that continue into another issue of Batman or Detective Comics where he has to take down a particular villain, while from time to time Bane and his goons show up. Like, this is the fight between Robin and Bird, ironically. And you can see how tired, not just in the stubble, but on his facial expressions, how tired Bruce is. Oh, he just needs some rest. And both Robin and Alfred are like, sir, you need to lay down. This is the Zaz story. This is a dark story. This is the fight between Killer Croc, the rematch between Killer Croc and Bane. And Batman's like, no, somebody's got to do the job, and it's going to be me. And eventually it catches up to him. So I'm sure by now, if you probably know what ends up happening. And I do love the confrontation between Batman and Bane, and how he just shows up at his house, man. This is a really good story. This is one where he's hallucinating, and like I said, just beat and tired. Jim Aparo on artwork, Joseph Rubinstein. But this time around, he's hallucinating about losing Jason Todd Robin to the Joker, and he starts snapping. Yeah, as he does, right? Like, Batman snaps from time to time on the Joker. The fight against Zombie, the fight against Bird and Trog, and eventually this guy just shows up in his house with this amazing cover. Oh my gosh, I will never forget. It's got this die-cut piece right here. They were doing gimmicky covers back then, and my gosh, that image, Kelly Jones. I'm not the biggest fan of this cover. I wish somebody else had done it. Maybe Jim Aparo died a few years before this came out. It's probably somebody like Graham Nolan. Because I don't know, this is just it. I was never a fan of this cover. I do love his Azrael though. So I did enjoy his cover art. Bane shows up at his house, man, and he's like, I'm gonna break you. And yeah, the fight goes on, and I love this image right here. And he just leaves him broken and done. Then he throws him to the city. He's like, look, Gotham, this is your savior. This city now belongs to me. Oh my gosh. And he throws him. So there's only one person that Bruce Wayne can think of. This is the showcase issues with Two-Face. It's like a little bit of a flashback. One person that Bruce Wayne can trust in the mantle of the Bat. And that is, of course, Dick Grayson, Nightwing. That's right. Nope, that did not happen. Maybe in an alternate reality. You didn't even call Dick. He didn't call Dick Grayson at all. So who ends up taking over? Jean-Paul Valley. Azrael becomes the new Batman. And his way of taking down crime is a little bit different. This is Brett Blevins on art. Than Bruce Wayne's Batman. And that's the big Knightfall story. And you can find out if he takes down Bane, how he takes down Bane and his goons. Now, there is one more character that was introduced through the pages. And that is this young lady right here, Chandra Kinsolving, who will play an important part in Bruce Wayne's life during this storyline in Knight's Quest and Knight's End. But she had shown up right before this launch. I think she was in Batman 481 was her first appearance. So that's the big story of Knightfall. It is Batman tired and facing all these goons and putting them back in Arkham Asylum while this new villain comes and takes advantage of how tired Batman is while he's juiced up on this venom and takes advantage of it. And then we have to have a replacement Bats. Now, where the story goes from here, it goes into the Night Quest series, which was collected in Volume 2, and then the Knight's End, which is collected in Volume 3. And Volume 3 will also contain Prodigal, which is my favorites, one of my top 3 favorite Batman stories of all time. A little bit of the character designs for the Badass, call him whatever you will, costume right here. And the costume does go through some changes, and that's from issue 500. That is something that I really didn't show, but I'm pretty sure most people know. Here's the standard edition cover. And then, of course, the direct market, or the variant cover was the Joe Quesada cover, but here is the new costume, what I was calling the Azbat costume, Azrael Batman costume. So here's the early designs by Joe Quesada, because Joe Quesada was the artist on Sword of Azrael. The designs of Bane by Graham Nolan, and then you have Trog and Zombie and Bird right there. The Joe Quesada variant cover, I love that cover. And then when you open it up, it's this page right here, or this particular picture. Then you have this piece by Kelly Jones as a poster, postcards. And then, the Wizard magazine. No, Batman Gallery. That's what it was. I love that cover. Yeah, Quesada was killing it. This is right before he went over to Marvel. And then some Knightfall trade paperbacks. Because this stuff has been collected. Not as complete as this omnibus, though. With the exception of the last batch of trade paperbacks that make the bat signal when you put them together. They did a good job of collecting everything there. With the exception of course, again, sort of Azrael. But who knows? Maybe one day. Now what I want to do is take a look at the binding. 940 pages. Not much of an eye. And to see the way the art lays over towards the beginning and towards the end, we're going to look here. So, a little bit of gutter loss. You got to hold it down right here to see the entire picture. Yeah, it's no different than some Marvel Omnis. It's just a lot of glue down there for some reason. And the way the book lays over towards the front. Honestly, not bad. I would expect a lot worse with that kind of binding and glue. Now, the paper stock... Actually, let's do a quick comparison between the two Omnis. We have the original printing, which I've already shown was a lot thicker. And this is what the eye looks like. And honestly, I was expecting that type of eye out of that one, but it's got all that excess glue. But it didn't have a problem, staying open. It did a pretty good job staying open. So it is a lot thinner than this one. So I'm sure that has to do with the binding, of course. And let's go ahead and compare the paper stock of between the 2017 and the new printing. So the new printing, yeah, the paper stock's thinner than the paper stock that they used in the original printing. And what's really interesting is that they're using the same printer. And let's see here. So here's some white. You can see a little bit of bleed through from the original and a little bit more in the new printing, just because of the paper stock they're using. And when I say thinner, it is thinner than the original printing, but not as thin as, like, I always compare it to the Kurt Busiek Conan Omnibus or the JMS Omnibus. But it is thinner, and that's something you're going to notice. And of course, the way that the book is bound is a little bit different. This has a little bit tighter binding than this right here. As far as the colors, though, they look identical. Page number still down there, so yeah, that hasn't changed. And again, you see a little bit of bleed through in the original printing, but a little bit more in the new printing with light colors and whites. I wanted to come back to these pages right here to do a quick comparison in the new printing and the original printing. And I'll be honest, and it could just be my copy, but the new printing, you have less gutter loss than you do in the original printing. See what I mean? Like, you even holding it down, this is as far as it goes. That's it. And again, that could be my copy. You don't have the whole DC bullet right there. Whereas if you hold it down here, you have the entire image. So if you waited this long to get the new book, but it is a little more expensive, right? It's $50 more than the original printing. But it looks like, yeah, you're going to have less gutter loss. So that's a big deal. Just, a little bit thinner paper, but I know that's not a deal breaker for a lot of people. But, for some people it is. But that's it. That, as they say, is that. If you're interested in purchasing this omnibus, don't forget to check out our sponsors.
If you're in Europe and you're interested in buying these books, definitely check out Walt's Comic Shop in Berlin, Germany. They have the cheapest pre-order prices, flat shipping rate of €12 for all EU countries, emails answered within 24 hours, waltzcomicshop.com, and you can use the code nearmintcondition at checkout and get free shipping for all EU countries with your first order over €40. That's Walt's Comic Shop, your reliable source for omnis and premium collected editions in Europe. Ding!
CheapGraphicNovels.com, your online home for graphic novels and collected editions up to 50% off cover price. They have excellent shipping and prompt and helpful service. Check out their bargain deals for up to 90% off cover price. And don't forget that CGN also takes pre-orders. That way you don't miss out on the hottest releases. And they are currently running a special promotion for you Minties. If you're a first-time customer, after receiving your order confirmation email, reply back to that email and let them know Near Mint Condition sent you their way. They will then apply a free shipping promotional credit to your next order in the US. Cheap Graphic Novels, your source for the hottest books with the kind of deep discount, quality shipping, and customer service that will keep you coming back for more.
And that was the content, the page count and build, and of course the comparison of this omnibus. Let me know in the comments down below if you are picking this up, what other Batman omnibus editions you want to see, what particular stories of Batman you want to see in omnibus format. My list of the top 10 most wanted Batman related omnis will be out here in a couple of weeks. But if you have any questions, leave them down below. Smash that like button. Everyone stay healthy and safe out there. Much love.